All right, good morning, everybody. I'm running a little late today. I should be. Oh, anyway, good morning. It's Monday morning, and it's a beautiful Monday morning. You're alive. That's a good day. That's a good thing to be. My name is James Morris, and we're here to talk about cars or things that may interest you. So you can pick up that phone and dial 850-763-0555, and we can talk about what's on your mind. Or I can talk right now to Frank Sundram, who's calling. I don't know where Frank's coming from. Calling from. Frank, where are you calling from this morning, sir?
From the enchanted land of Panama City.
Okay, so you are in town. Sometimes you're in Kentucky, sometimes you're in Brunel, Florida, sometimes you're in transit between the two places. So what's going on? What's on your mind this morning, sir?
Well, this morning, lots of stuff to talk about. I want to take you back to my '92 Lexus SC400 this morning.
All right.
Which has been running great. And the other day I fired it up, and it fired right up, and it ran great. And then all of a sudden, while it was idling, after about a minute of idling, it started misfiring.
Ooh, okay.
And it's almost reminiscent of when the last time it did that, I had to change a mass air filter, mass air sensor. Mm-hmm. And the question is, why would a mass air sensor fail or a coil fail? Because this is a cycle that has been going on now for about 6-7 months, where I've had coils fail and then mass air sensors fail. I fear there's something systemic going on, coming from somewhere else, that's causing these failures.
The biggest thing I know is systemic that seems to be that people, when they change the coils on them, especially if it's an older model vehicle, they sometimes buy aftermarket parts such as coils that are aftermarket. They're close to being factory, but they're just NQR. They're just not quite right. And sometimes the coils you buy are not as good as the used coils you have on the vehicle. So the first thing we're going to need to do is find out what is going on with the car. Is it definitely a misfire? Which cylinder is misfiring? Here's what I would do, Frank, if you possibly can. Can you get to all the coils on this vehicle? Has a coil for each spark plug, right? Does it have a coil for each spark?
Well, each coil fires 4 cylinders, alternating banks.
Okay, so you have one coil for so you have one coil per bank. So you have 2 coils in, right? Is that all you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. What happens is it fires each coil fires 2 cylinders on each.
Okay,
bank,
so you have 3 coils in on this vehicle.
2 coils.
It's
V8.
It's a V8. Okay. Well, normally if it's a V8 and you're firing 2 at one time, you've got 4 coils. You're firing on the. Okay. So here's what I'm going to recommend. Let's find out first. Is there any code? Can you get any codes out of it? I know it's a 92.
I've not had time to pull them off.
Okay.
I'm just sort of dealing with it in a more global thing. I have a feeling you're going to be seeing these sooner rather than later.
Well, normally what I find this is how I do. This is the old-fashioned way. If you think the car is misfiring, get the car idling where it's misfiring and pull one spark plug wire off at a time. Now you've got 2 that are firing. For one on the compression stroke and one on the exhaust stroke. And normally, when you pull that off, you'll normally feel the big difference because you'll usually lose 1 or 2 cylinders when this happens.
Right.
So I would find out which one is misfiring, if any is misfiring. And if you've got good spark on all 8 cylinders, then that's probably not your problem. But if you pull it off and you don't notice any difference and you don't hear that fire jumping at least a ½ inch to an inch, if it can't jump that far, then I'd be looking at those coils. But the biggest thing that stresses coils out is plug wires and wore out spark plugs. If the plug wires have a lot of resistance, that makes the coils work harder along with the spark plugs themselves. If the electrode gap is, instead of being 35 thousandths, now let's say it's 80 thousandths, and it has to jump further, so it has to produce more electricity. It has to produce more voltage. Now, that might be what's stressing your coils. I don't know. But that's what I would be doing first. I'd be making sure what the problem is. And if it is a misfire, and you can swap the coils around, I've done that before, where I've moved coils from one bank to another bank, and see if the misfire follows the coils. And that's about the best advice I can give without any codes. Hope that kind of points you in the right direction. But you did write me, you said something about you have a relative coming in town and they ran over something on the interstate?
My younger brother was driving on I-10 when some kind of a piece of metal flew off a truck. And there was no place to go because he was in heavy traffic, and he wound up running over it, and it ripped out some oil lines. And by the time he was able to stop and stuff, he had left a trail of oil behind.
Oh, no.
And so it wound up in the Toyota dealer in Tallahassee Saturday morning, and they were able to patch together the oil lines and all that and make him good to go. But now there are several sensors that are going. And so we're going to meet another member of the Sundram family, you lucky guy.
Wow, my lucky day. I tell you what, it's going to be a fulfilling Monday if I get to meet two Sundrams in one day. But I have no idea. But normally when lights come on, they're not that difficult because they're going to have a code in the computer telling what area it sees problems. And, that points in the right direction. Yeah. But if you can, Frank, on your car, see, I'm trying to remember, the best way to get codes out of your car, if I'm not mistaken, you have to have a scanner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. You've got, what you can do is jump it, and it gives you those flashing lights.
Oh, that's right. You can go to T1. That's right. You can go between 2 points. That's right.
T1 to E1.
T1 to E1. That's right. And I forgot about that. You can actually count the number of flashing lights on that one. Do that. Call me back and let me know what you've got. And that way I can point you in the right direction. But I find it hard to believe a mass airflow sensor would be bad. But I can believe a coil can go bad. Maybe not the one you changed, but another coil. Because I see coils, they seem to all last about the same time. I've had customers come in with V8s, and I say, you got one coil bad, I'm going to recommend changing all of them. They look at me and go, I got 8 coils. Why do you want to change all of them? Only one of them's bad. I said, if I don't change the other 7, you'll be back next month with the same problem on another cylinder. And then a month after that on another problem. You either pay me now, or you're going to pay me a lot more later and a lot more downtime to replace all of them, as they come apart. But anyway, that's just an idea to point you in the right direction. But call me back and let me know what you find on that part. But anyway, we got about 7 minutes left. We got plenty of time left on here. You've successfully managed to get your motor home where it works correctly. You haven't had any problem, but I wanted to know, did you put a kicker pump in there inside the fuel tank to supply fuel to the other pump, or did you do that after I didn't know how you experimented with that on supplying fuel.
Well, I didn't put a kicker pump inside the fuel tank simply because what we did was I put in there are 2 fuel tanks, so there's a fuel pump and there's a selector switch. So downstream of the selector switch, there is an electric fuel pump that feeds the high pressure fuel pump.
Okay, all right, good.
And that's so, it's a Carter fuel pump, and it's done really well.
Great. That's what I wanted to make sure, because that's the biggest thing I see. You've got to be able to feed that high pressure fuel pump, or they'll starve for fuel. They just because remember, electric fuel pumps are designed to push fuel, not suck fuel like a vacuum operated. And I have a lot of people. I have a lot of people say, "Well, I'm going to put my electric fuel pump on my firewall of my engine, and my engine compartment firewall." I said, "You can do that all you want, but your engine's going to starve for fuel." Well, why is that? And I said, because you have an electric fuel pump which is designed to push fuel from the back of the tank, go all the way back to push it to the engine, not designed to suck it from the engine from the gas tank. It just won't work very well. Not very long, not very well either. Anyway, I just want to make sure we've got that out in the open, because I've had a couple of people ask me about, the kicker pump. Where do you put them? I've actually put them in the fuel tank. I've actually taken the fuel tank, the part that goes in the fuel tank, the sending unit, taking at the very bottom of it, added me a Chevrolet Vega fuel pump, and ran 2 wires up through the top of it, sealed them off with silicone, and put it back together. That way I had me a Chevrolet Vega fuel pump out of a 72 Vega, and it pumps 2 pounds of pressure directly to my fuel pump, and it's inside the fuel tank. So it's that's one of the things I've done to solve that problem. And I know you put one on the outside of the fuel tank, right by the fuel tank, to help push it so it doesn't have to suck very far to get that fuel to come out. And so that works really well.
While we're discussing that, there's also a trick to placement. One of the things that you really want to do with that fuel pump is to make sure that it is not much higher than the fuel tank itself. The fuel tank, it has to be right there in line. It
has to be. The lower you can get it, the better off you can, because once you get that fuel where it starts coming, it'll keep going. But boy, if you get one too high or too far away, they just won't get it out. But I'm so glad you got that where you were able to drive on highway speeds without starving for fuel. Is one of the big problems I see on it. People that put aftermarket and fuel injection systems on, they don't get it. They don't have fuel delivery. They got fuel pressure, but they don't have fuel volume. That seems to be the biggest problems I've seen over that. So you've got that taken care of. You're going to be bringing your Lexus in. You're going to be bringing your brother in. He's got something we're going to be looking at that day. Look forward to seeing him. And what else is going on? I can't think of anything else that's been exciting. Go ahead.
Let me bring you up something, because here's something. We've been talking about the problem of the automotive industry and young people.
Right.
So here is something. Now, this is from an industry newspaper where they're talking about, young people are rejecting cars to a large degree. The trend line seems to be away from what it was when you and I were young men. But now dealerships are having trouble holding on to younger employees.
Go figure.
And
yeah.
And that would be a dagger to the heart of the industry, because they need young people just to replace the older guys like myself who one day decide, that the fishing is better when you do it 7 days a week.
And that's the other thing I'm seeing. You're absolutely right. In our industry, they tell us, they encourage us, please always have at least one person in the wings that is an apprentice learning this skill. The problem is I can't find people that want to learn to be apprentices. They want to work. I want to work. I want to be an apprentice, but you're going to pay me $18 an hour. I'm going to pay you $18 an hour. Okay, wonderful. So what do you bring to the table for me? What can you do for $18 an hour? If I'm going to pay you $18 to $20 an hour, you got to produce me at least $100 an hour.
Hey, Frank, the last 5 apprentices I've hired lasted less than 2 weeks before they just quit coming to work.
Yeah, and that's the problem. What I've got is I can pay them. I can't pay them more than what they're worth because they tear up more than they fix. Does that make sense?
That's right. Absolutely.
They do. I have them do things that make me pull my hair out sometimes, going, why did you do that? I mean, it doesn't seem like much to you, but by plugging that in backwards, I've just wasted 6 hours trying to figure out what you did. But that's the things that's one of the things I talk about. It doesn't seem to be very few people have that desire to learn. They think that if they come to work for somebody, they're going to get paid and educated and get a high pay and get good education, all by working. And I tell people, I said, normally you pay to get an education in school, at a technical school or a trade school, and get a basic, and then you come to a shop and then we refine it, we make it better. But very few people want to go through that much trouble, it seems like, Frank. Anyway, I know
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
All right, welcome back. I was just on the phone with Frank Sundram, and I've got Mr. Scott Hobbs on here from Mr. Router Plumbing over here. Good morning, Scott. How are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm glad to hear that. I have been, you've been talking about how, the plumbing industry is needs to do a better job of doing preventative maintenance, teaching people about preventative maintenance, because you say the automotive industry has been doing it for years, like change your oil over 3,000 to 5,000 miles, things like that, where people don't seem to realize that they are realizing that there is maintenance. If they don't do it on their home, they're going to have big bills come down. It's like the Fram commercial, pay me now or pay me later. I'm seeing that a lot on people.
That's right. We kind of live in a disposable society, so folks say, well, I just buy another one. But, when it comes to replacing, your water heater, your tankless water heater, replacing all the mini shutoff valves that you have in your home, or replacing a septic system, it can be very costly, and you can prolong that or cause that appliance or fixture to last years and years just through proper maintenance.
Well, and one of the things, a lot of it isn't. We're talking about sometimes just common sense maintenance. I don't know if that's the right term to use. Common sense maintenance, such as I had someone the other day say, "Well, my sink just barely drains. I mean, when I turn the water on, it just barely comes." I said, "Did you clean the nozzle out?" And they looked at me like, "Huh?" I said, "There's a little nozzle aerator that gets clogged up with sand and dirt." And the guy said, "Well, how do you know that?" And I said, "Well, Scott Hobbs and his crew comes over here all the time. They're talking about some of the things they see." And they said that's a very common problem, especially in the city where they've been doing work around on the city on the pipes, and sand will get into the lines and it'll clog up so your water barely comes out. And he called me back the next day. He said, "That's all that was wrong with my car." And I said, with my water faucet. And I said, "Well, Scott Hobbs is someone you need to contact if you're having problems." And I guess that's something, y'all see stuff like that just about every day.
We do, and I'm going to add to that, this might be interesting. When you remove that aerator and you examine what's in the aerator, sometimes we find little tiny pieces of white plastic. And that tells us that the dip tube within your tank-type water heater is deteriorating and falling apart, and it's coming through the water line.
So what is that again?
That's an indication.
What is that again?
So there's a dip tube in your water heater. So the hot and cold water are on top of the water heater, and the cold water has to go to the top, of course, so that the heat rises and the hot water comes out the top. Well, that plastic dip tube over time will start to disintegrate and fall apart and become brittle. And those pieces of plastic will end up in that aerator, and you think, well, maybe it's just something the city did or something flushed through my line. But no, that's an indication that your water heater is failing.
Well, that may be what it is. Like I said, I'm not a plumber. I just play one on television.
Right.
I don't know, but we talked about it, and he said, "Well, yeah, it comes out a lot better again." I said, "Well, that's probably what it was." But I know when I see white plastic in my aerator at my house, it's normally because I've been putting pipe together, and little pieces of PVC has come through, and I didn't get it all wiped out. I've seen that.
Well, it could be that too, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm not exactly a really neat plumber. I'm more of a mechanic. I can always open it up, flush it out. But yeah, whenever I work on plumbing and stuff like that, you would be surprised how the things you have to do after you get everything put together. You've got to make sure everything runs out and gets clean, because if you just put it together, and I've seen some plumbers do this, just put it together and walk away, and they don't go test the water and flow it out, and then you call them back the next day because your water barely comes out because it's full of trash. But that's something that your crew does. They do work, they inspect before they do the work, and then after the work is completed, they get another set of eyes on it and make sure the work is done correctly, because it's a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So your entire home is all interconnected. So if you work on a water line in the yard, you need to definitely flush the line, and we like to go to the fixtures that don't have the aerators first, such as maybe the hose bib on the outside of the house, or maybe the tub that has a spout, and allow those particles and things to flush clear before you go straight to the kitchen sink and open up the water and bleed the air out.
I never thought of that. Maybe I should do that next time instead of spending the next other hour cleaning my aerators out. But yeah, that's a great idea. So go to the water bib outside, or go to the bathtub and turn it on because you don't have an aerator. That way all those big pieces of plastic and everything will get stuck out, or sand. That's not a bad idea. But there's other things that need to be checked that people overlook. What are some of the things they seem to overlook the most that causes the most headaches that's avoidable? I mean, there's certain things that are very avoidable, but people just overlook them because they get too busy or don't think about them. I was thinking maybe it's the hoses in the back of a washing machine that you've talked about.
Well, that's definitely one of those. You know, if you read the manufacturer's recommendation, the manufacturer will tell you that you should shut the water off to your washing machine after every use.
Wow.
Now, I don't know anybody that does that. I don't do that.
I don't know anyone.
And I know what
it
says.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt to reach back behind the washing machine and turn it off. So what do you suggest for those people? You know, I'm not going to do that. What do people do?
Well, my suggestion would be to make sure you have a set of good quality stainless steel braided hoses that connect from the wall to the washing machine, and that's going to prevent the old rubber hoses, they dry out and they dry rot, and over time they'll swell and rupture.
Oh boy!
And you know, you may be at work, you may be on vacation when this happens, and that's obviously the worst case scenario. So if you use the good quality braided hoses, and then if you are going to be away for an extended period of time, just go ahead and shut the water off.
Well, that's what you told me before. If you're going to be away for even for a weekend, if there's no reason to have your water on, why have it on? And I told someone that the other day, and they said, "Do you know how much trouble it is to turn my water off?" I go, "No, I don't." I said, "Don't you just have a valve you walk out there and turn?" He goes, "Yeah, once I reach down through the spiders and the toad frogs, it's way down there on the bottom, and the snakes." He said, "That's a pain in the butt to turn off." And I went, "Well, you need to do something about that. If it's that much of trouble to turn off, then you need to redesign it or redo something, because if you have a pipe break, what are you going to do?" You know, I said, how are you going to get it cut off? Well, I never thought about that. So that's something people...
Sure,
yeah, go ahead.
We do that quite a bit. We'll have elderly folks call us and ask us to bring a pipe up, closer out of the ground to where they can reach it. Of course, we insulate it and cover it so it doesn't get susceptible to freeze damage, and that way they can just reach down and they do a quarter turn. It doesn't take a lot of effort at all, and their water is shut off. And they feel much more secure and safe.
I agree. A ball valve, something is with a handle on it, it's so much easier. Or something you just turn a half a turn. I mean, and they can be either made out of copper, brass, or PCV. I did that on my house where I have water that comes in from the street, and I have emergency potable water from a well in case I lose water from the street due to contamination. I can switch back and forth, but it's only by moving a valve. I mean, and something that y'all do every day, I'm sure, and people can use that services, and that's something that is preventative maintenance. I'd rather pay to have that done than have a pipe break in my ceiling or have a pipe break in the floor or whatever, or something happens, start flooding my house out, and it takes me an hour or longer to get someone over or me to figure out how to cut the water off. Because if I can cut that water off in seconds versus minutes and hours, I can save thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. And I think that'd be good preventative maintenance. Everyone listening to the show should actually call and make sure their water valve works. Most people, I venture to say more than 70% of people listening, their shut-off valve is either frozen or inoperable. I'm just guessing. I'm just throwing a number out there because I know every building that I've bought in the last 10 years, the water valve never works. It never it doesn't work.
And it truly is a common occurrence for folks to call up in a panic. They've got a broke water line and it's flooding the house, and they don't know where to shut the water off. And of course, there's times that we can't get there within minutes. And they're panicking.
Yeah.
Maybe they have to call the city, or maybe they're in a rural area, and they just don't know how. They're not educated on the simple fact of how to shut the water off. And that is just a simple responsibility of a prudent homeowner, or even if you're a tenant, you should know those simple things.
Well, and that's one of the things. So if someone calls up and says, "Look, I want to get my house evaluated to see if I need to have any preventative maintenance done," and what I mean evaluated, like, are my drain lines good? Are my water supply lines good? Is my valve cut off? Is that something that you can do? That is, they need to call for an appointment, or how is that service offered at Mr. Reuter?
Oh, sure. So we definitely offer that. But the great thing about Mr. Reuter Plumbing is is with every service call. So if you call us out to repair something or unclog a drain, we offer that as a complimentary service that goes along with the primary service, of course. And we will do that plumbing checkup for you. If you have an access for your main drain, we'll camera that. If you don't, we'll obviously recommend that. So that's something. And then our Advantage Plan customers, they see the benefits of that annual maintenance and that regular routine maintenance, and we come out on an annual basis and do that plumbing checkup for them.
Well, I know if I do a pre-buy on a car, we're talking about between an hour to an hour and a half labor to do that kind of work, and we charge accordingly to it. We're from $100 to $150 for when the general area do that work. And if someone calls out and say, "Fix my drain," I've got a problem with my drain. You fix the drain, and while you're there, you're going to camera their drain line just to make sure that it's not clogged up, and look at their receptacles around the fixtures around the house. Is that part of y'all's service at no extra charge?
Absolutely. When we're there for a service call, we absolutely do that. Now, we do have folks that call us and that's all they want, and obviously there's a charge for that, because like you said, it's an hour and a half process to go through and thoroughly kind of check through and do a visual check and check on things. But when you're one of our customers, that's part of our service.
And the Advantage Plan, that's something I want to talk about. The Advantage Plan is something people don't realize. When you get an Advantage Plan, you're on a priority. If I call you and a guy right next door to me has the same problem, but he doesn't have the Advantage Plan, you're going to come see me before you'll come see him. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. And that holds true when we have natural disasters such as hurricanes and storms, and most recently in the last few years when we've had hard freezes. We literally, if you're a fresh, brand new customer, we ask you to stand by, and as our Advantage Plan customers call, we take care of them first, and then we go back and see if that new customer needs us. So we take it very seriously because they've committed to us, we're going to commit to them.
And that's what we're talking. We're not talking about a one-time relationship. We're not talking about a one-night stand. We're talking about a lifetime commitment is what we're talking about. Yes.
That's our hope, yes.
Sure. Yeah, that's the same thing we do at my shop. It's a lot easier to keep a customer that's been to my shop. It's a lot easier to keep a customer that you've worked on one time. They understand how you're going to take care of them. And that's why I think it's a lot more cost effective to maintain the customers you have. And that's one of the things I know that y'all do. Y'all try to maintain your customers, I know y'all keep up with them. Y'all do follow-ups, you do surveys, you try to make their job better, your employees' job better, and the customer's experience better. You have lots of lines of communication. I think every time we have y'all come do some work at our house, we get 2 or 3 follow-ups, which is something you don't normally get anymore on a lot of service industries. They don't follow up on the work. How was the work? Did we do a good job? And I know you're constantly trying to improve, and we're not perfect. No one is, but you do make mistakes, but y'all make those mistakes good. That's what I like about it. Y'all do a great job, and I really appreciate that.
And that's absolutely right. We do a weekly training with our technicians, a weekly meeting and training, and we go over the good responses, and then we coach and train on the things that we as a team need to improve. Good. So we're always trying to get better, because you're right, we're not perfect, but we strive to get better and better.
Getting better every day. Hey, give Mr. Reuter a call at 763-2001 and tell him the Master Auto Technician sent you, and get the Advantage Plan. If you don't know anything about it, talk to him about the Advantage Plan. It's worth the money. Scott, I'll be talking to you next week. Thanks for calling, sir.
Thank you.
All right.